Hello and welcome back after a lengthy delay to the International Dream. A lot has changed since the last time I was here. I mean, the last time I was here, Ben was also here, so Ben's joining me again.
Yeah.
Um,
Hello. Thank you for having me, mate.
no, it's a pleasure, and we did mention it when we talked about our England lineup predictions
hmm
that we wanted to talk about some of the other teams um,
Yes.
in the tournament, which is funny. We're talking about the eight favorites with the bookies today, and only two of them are qualified because we're still that far away from the World Cup.
Yeah.
There's still 10 months to go. So before we start, I thought we'd just run through what the bookies are saying. In the UK, the betting odds. I think Odds Checker is a good resource, not sponsored, but Odds Checker if you want to. It's preferable to having an actual betting company sponsor you. But
Yep.
I'm just gonna run you through. They sort of do their like combined ranking of all the different bookies. And at the moment, Spain are the favourites with most places. Looking at 5-1, 4-1, 11-2, that kind of those kind of odds. This really surprised me. In second favourites with most places again is Brazil, which
What?
I think
Really?
I think that's just the casual fan. Brazil are always
Yeah.
among the favorites. I think HICC Sevens
Mhm.
did a video on how the favorites performed at every World Cup, and I think about 80% of them the
Yes.
favorites were Brazil. It just
Mm.
comes with the territory,
Yeah. Well, the bookies are smart. They know what they're doing.
and I think yeah, the layman will say what Brazil only 10-1, and they're gonna snap on that, and then if Brazil do win.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean it does vary. That I think two, three, and four is where you get the most variance. So Spain are the favourites for most places, and then it's really Brazil,
Mhm.
France, and England are the next three,
Yeah.
depending which
Yeah.
order. And then Argentina all the way down at 8-1, which
That's quite low.
we'll get
That
to
surprises me.
what I think about that.
hmm
Then most places
Yeah.
have Germany at about 10-1,
hmm
Portugal 10, 11, 12, and there's a big jump to the Netherlands at 20-1. So
20 for the Dutch. Wow.
I'm not a betting man,
That is
but
interesting.
you know. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, I mean, look, they've never won it, so
That's true, and it's far from their best ever team, but yeah.
yeah.
Let's start with
But it's also not their
Argentina.
worst.
No, it's
Yeah.
definitely not their
Yeah.
worst. Let's start with Argentina.
Yeah. Mhm.
I think it's fair to say this is the team with the best continuity and the best mentality going into the World
Yes.
Cup. Would you agree?
Mhm. I would agree with that. Yes. I mean, they've won, what is it, all three of their past major tournaments, right? Now, there's always a slight caveat with that, unfortunately, because the Copa America obviously only has few select teams that are ever really in contention to win it. So most years they kind of have to beat Brazil. That's the bulk of it. Now, there's often upsets, and it's easy to underestimate some of the other South American teams, but ultimately they should have won both of the past two Copa Americas. And of course, the World Cup is where we really focus on them. I think, ultimately worthy winners, although they weren't. I still wouldn't necessarily describe them as the best team of that tournament, given that they were beaten by Saudi Arabia in the first match, and then that really forced them to restructure and think about the team properly. Now, I think that's credit to the progression. So they're not invincible. I understand why they're not first. I probably would have put them second favorites personally. And I think the other factor is this is now a different team than the squad that won the World Cup.
To an extent, I think this is actually
Yeah.
something I've written down. The squad
hmm
is quite different in the sense
Yeah.
that you don't have Angel Di Maria. That's probably the biggest
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
You don't
Who was
have
their best player in the World Cup final?
in the final, yes, but
I would
what
say,
people
yeah,
forget is that before the final, he barely played. He barely
yeah,
played in the
yeah.
World Cup. He
I
was
was
off the bench a lot
surprised
of the
when he
time.
was playing the final that he was starting the final. It shows what I know, right? I thought that's interesting. I honestly never rated him much, but he
Wow.
was excellent. Yeah, yeah, but he was excellent in that match, and I wasn't expecting it.
What a take to drop. That's a whole video right there is the Angel Di Maria debate.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
But players like Papu Gomez, who started the first game and then was sort of taken out of the team because they made a lot of changes because of how
yeah.
embarrassing that result was.
Yes.
But
Because McAllister didn't start, did he? And then
no,
that I think was probably the crucial change for that tournament.
well, this is the thing is that if you look at their lineup from the first game, yeah, there's four or maybe five players that played whether off the bench or started that aren't in the team anymore. If you look at their
Mm.
best 11 from that tournament, it's almost exactly the same. You've still got DePaul, McAllister, and Enzo Fernandez in the
Yeah.
midfield. You've still got Molina at right back, who is Atletico Madrid's backup right back, but for some reason he plays really well for the national team. You got Romero and Otamendi still as the centre backs. You still got Emi Martinez. You still got Messi, and you still got Julian Alvarez. Now, left back, you're probably looking at Facundo Medina, maybe Tagliafico. It's not going to
Hmm.
be Acuna, who was the left back at the World Cup. Tagliafico played a little bit as well. Um, and then the other
Yes.
one is probably Lautaro Martinez or Thiago Almada, depending on the system coming in for Di Maria, whether you do the two strikers or
Mhm.
whether you do the wingers. So, in terms of continuity, considering it's 4 years on, having nine of the same 11 from the final, I think, is pretty
Yes.
impressive.
But as we see so often in tournament football, is that the squad is in many ways more important than the starting 11. Look at what just happened with the women's Euros with England, where it was all about who they brought up off the bench that won them the tournament.
Mm.
So yes, it is interesting that much of the starting 11 is fairly similar, given that they had some older players. But I'm a big believer in the squad being what wins you the tournament.
That's probably, yeah, I think in terms of attacking depth, they're absolutely fine. I mean, Thiago Almada
Hmm.
is brilliant. Giuliano Simeone on the international level, he was a big part of them absolutely destroying Brazil in the last international break, or the one before last. Um,
Yes.
you've still got Giovanni Lo Celso, who before his injury, people forget he was one of the most important players in their unbeaten run before the World Cup, and he missed the World Cup through injury, which then obviously led to the experimentation of midfield and McAllister, Enzo Fernandez coming in, and we all know what happened after that. It's.
Yeah.
I think they are probably my favourites because you've got the defensive solidity. If it
Really
goes to penalties,
interesting.
if it goes
Hmm.
to penalties, not only have they got the best penalty goalkeeper in the world, they probably
Yeah,
also have
by far.
four or five players where they would be penalty takers for their club. Lautaro Martinez, Messi, Julian Alvarez. All right, McAllister isn't Liverpool's penalty taker, but he's their second penalty
Hmm.
taker.
Yeah.
These are
And you still would
almost
trust him.
dead cert
Yeah.
penalty takers. I mean,
Interestingly, in fact, I think Messi is probably one of the weaker penalties of those five choices, which is even though he is their always
mm,
going to be their primary penalty taker, especially when it's not in a
mm.
shootout. But that shows the quality that they have in shootouts when he's the one that I would be most nervous, I think, taking that pen.
So, and yeah, everything. I think Scaloni has proven himself. I think he had a lot of doubters as a coach, but he's really
He
proven
did.
himself to be
He did.
maybe the best international manager. I'm not saying he's a better manager than Carlo Ancelotti or Thomas Tuchel or Julian
Hmm.
Nagelsmann, but as an international manager, at the moment, he's the best in the world.
Yeah,
Um,
he certainly has the best track record, and it's such a different discipline, isn't it, managing a national team? Because you don't get to mold them to your style week in, week out. You know that they are being influenced by their club managers, and then you just get given what you're given, and you have to find a way of mixing and matching with all these
Mm.
players that play in different systems. Sometimes are rivals, most of the time. It's such a kind of challenging thing to do in such a short span of time.
I mean, yeah, we saw that firsthand with Luciano Spalletti, who had that incredible Napoli team, took over as the Italy coach. He was seen as the savior, and he stank the place out. They were really poor at the Euros. They just got hammered by Norway, who themselves have flattered to deceive under Solbakken, but now seem to have turned a corner. It's interesting. So yeah, Argentina for me, they are the favourites just because
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know. I need to see them get beat in a knockout game, and I haven't seen it since what
Yeah, yeah,
2020 or 2019. So
yeah.
and then that leads us then to Spain, who I assume are your favourites.
Yes, definitely. I think they are Argentina and Spain are my two favorites, certainly. But I put Spain first. Actually, I'm quite comfortable saying that. In fact, normally I toss a turn over who's first, who's second, simply because I think Argentina have more glaring weaknesses than Spain do. I think
I don't know if I
Spain
agree, but carry on.
really. Okay, well, I'll explain what I mean by that. So there's a few things. I think it comes down more to Argentina's weaknesses that I feel I have identified compared to Spain. So the big thing is with Messi, right? So he's going to be yet another year older. The whole team is always going to be based around him, whether it still should be or not. That's a whole other debate. But the man can't run anymore. He's possibly the greatest player in the sport's history, but he can't run. He could barely run in the last World Cup. He definitely can't run now. And when you base your team around a player who plays obviously a weaker standard of league most of the top players in the World Cup will be playing at, and it comes with so many glaring weaknesses. Now, the midfield does very well accommodating for that. DePaul is basically like Messi's bodyguard in the way he plays. McAllister will sweep up and clean up anything he needs to. But it's still, I don't think it's the best position to be put in. Mixed with Argentina are always susceptible because of the kind of the dark arts play style, right, and the mentality. They you always think there's a high chance someone's going to get sent off, and you don't know where that's going to lead. Their players are always someone like Romero. You think he's like every time he steps on the pitch, there's a good chance he's not going to be there after 90 minutes. So I think that's something that Spain don't have to struggle with in the same way. They don't have any aging players that they're basing the whole team around, and they've still been playing well this past year without their best player in Rodri. And I think if you can be that good without your best player, just how good are you going to be when he comes back? And then, of course, every single month Lamine Yamal ages, he gets even better. God knows how exceptional he will be if he continues on this trajectory in a year's time.
Yeah, it's interesting the Messi thing. I think undoubtedly they're better when he plays, but he's not
Hmm.
played all of their World
Um,
Cup qualifiers, and
and he got subbed off in the Copa America final, didn't
he did. And
he? Yeah.
I I've got to say, players like Thiago Almada and Giuliano Simeone, who are not blockbuster players, they come in for the national team and they're scoring goals and they're playing hard. You know, you take Messi out, suddenly you
Because
have
it's about the system.
exactly, and I think that is where Messi's influence is obviously massive, but I don't think it's the same as Ronaldo, which we'll get to, where the
That's
entire
another
team
big talking
is
point.
built around him and the entire team is having to make up for his weaknesses.
Yeah. And
I
Ronaldo's
think
even older. He's 40.
exactly. I think with Messi, Scaloni, I think would be brave enough if by an hour in Messi's not having influence on the game, he would take him off. I really believe
Yeah.
that.
I think so.
I don't think he would have in Qatar, but I think it's come to the point now where the team around him is good enough. On
Yeah.
Spain, I absolutely hear everything you're saying. I also, yeah, to be fair, the temperament issue with Argentina, I always look at Otamendi, Romero, and Emi Martinez, and that's three. Your back three, all players who are
Yeah,
hot-headed, who can get
yeah,
themselves in trouble. Um,
exactly.
Romero's probably the one to worry about the most. Um,
Definitely he is.
I think where
But
I
he's not
would,
the
yeah, where I would counter that is they lost to Saudi Arabia. If this was going to be an issue, it surely would have reared its head then. They would have tried too hard. They'd have got two red cards against Mexico and they'd have gone out of the World Cup. But they rallied and they played brave but sensible football. And I think that winning temperament is there when they play together. But it is undeniable that this Spain team is very, very, very exciting. You just
Yeah.
think about that lineup: Rodri, Pedri, Fabian Ruiz, Nico Williams, Lamine Yamal, and then striker probably Oyarzabal, maybe Morata if he finds some form with Como.
Probably.
But
I
it's
mean,
one of those
Morata was
two.
so crucial in the last Euros, of course,
Mm.
which I think was a surprise to a lot of people, myself included. But then he's dropped off again since then. So that's what I
Oyarzabal
think that's one
played
of the
in
weaknesses.
the Nations League and he played pretty
Hmm.
well. So
Yeah. And he scored in the Euro final.
he scored the winner, yeah,
He
and
scored the winner
he
in the
scored in the
Euro final.
Nations League final as well. So
Hmm.
he's got that track record. I,
Yes.
I think one thing with Spain that people do forget is the defense is not great. And that
Well, they rely
would
on French centre halves.
there we go. And they probably wouldn't even be the third choice French centre backs because France are stacked in
No.
that position.
Yeah.
Um,
Well.
but Lenormand and I think it's going to be Lenormand, and then it's whether you got Howson at Real Madrid or Kabasi at Barcelona.
Mhm.
You're probably not looking at Laporte again. It's going to be
Not
Lenormand
anymore.
and one of those two youngsters, which is exciting. And I think in
Yeah.
maybe by the next Euros or the next World Cup, you're going to have Kubasi and Housen starting, which is very exciting.
Yeah.
But I think it's more that
Kabasi in particular, I think is really exciting young talent.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's more to do with the style of play. And I think they
Mhm.
kind of, I don't want to say they got found out. They kind of got found out at the Nations League because the Dutch scored 5 goals against them over 2 legs. France scored 4 goals against them, and they then conceded two against Portugal. Very leaky at the back.
Yeah.
Whether Rodri comes in and steadies the ship, I don't know. That worries me. Even at the
Yeah.
Euros, they kept. I don't think they kept a clean sheet in the knockout stages. They conceded the own goal to Georgia. The game against Germany was a toss-up. Either of those teams could have won that. They beat France, but had to come from behind. And they did concede against England in the final as well. And England and Germany both played them very close. And I think people there's this
Yeah.
image
They
of
did.
Spain at that tournament of they played everybody off the park. And they probably outplayed every opponent they played, but Germany and England, that was close.
Yeah.
Both very close
Yeah.
games.
And I say this as a lifelong England fan, right? I think I expected Spain to dominate England more than they did. The fact that it came that close when England were poor all tournament and just kind of crawled their way to that final. I thought it was going to be a thrashing. I almost felt relieved at the end of the match that it came that close,
Mm,
to be honest,
mm.
that we were hitting the woodwork away from equalizing at the end of the match. So I think that is significant, and I think the Rodri talking point is huge because after such a massive issue, even though he was the best player in the world at the time of his injury, to come back from that long out with such a brutal recovery period can be very difficult. Look at what happened with Van Dijk after he did his ACL. I don't know that he's ever quite been the same
I
defender
was
that
just
he
going to
was all
say
that time.
it's only just this last season that I felt that he's been at the level he was before the ACL. It's been what, 2, 3 years? 2 years?
It was 4 years ago that he did his
Wow. Yeah.
ACL with
So
Pickford.
it's
Yeah, it was a 2020-21 season.
and he's 33, but I got to say this last season he was back to his best, but it's taken a while.
But it's taken a long time.
Mm.
And so now obviously Rodri might be different. I kind of hope he is because he's that good. Now I'm scared as an England fan about the prospect of what he could do for Spain, but still just as a lover of football, you want to see that one of the very best players in the world back to his best. And he's just such an important part of his national side, and of course it's City too. We've seen what happened, how they collapsed when he was gone. So much so that when he was subbed off in the Euro final, all the England fans were celebrating as if we'd won.
What people forget though is the depth in midfield of the Spain team. If Rodri, God forbid, if
Mhm.
he has an injury relapse and he has to miss the
Yeah.
tournament, Martin Zubimendi, I'm convinced he is going to be a brilliant signing for Arsenal. He stepped in that Euro final and it was like having another Rodri. It was
Yeah.
seamless, and he was one of the best players on the pitch. Um, Not to mention you got Gavi, you got Mark Casado, you got Mikel Marino as well. All
Yeah.
those options in
Who
that
can kind of
midfield.
do everything, it seems.
Mm, mm. So I'm kind of talking myself into it because we've done all this and not really talked about Lamine Yamal or Pedri,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
people forget because Barcelona went out of the Champions League. There were Ballon d'Or shouts for Pedri.
Hmm.
That's how good he was playing. He'd probably still get in the
Yeah.
top 10. You're talking about a team with three of the 10 best players in the world in Rodri, Pedri,
Yes.
and Lamine Yamal. So
Yeah.
I do worry
And
about the defense. I really do. And I think if they get into a
yes.
firefight, they can probably win. It kind of is how I feel about Barcelona, where because they play such an attacking style, if they get into a match against a team where it's just blow for blow,
Hmm.
oy, but they
Hmm.
have a midfield, the best midfield in the world in international football. You know, a Champions League winner in Fabian Ruiz, and then the
Yeah.
two of the best midfielders in the world. So I think I'm happy to put Spain at one with the asterisks of I'm a bit worried about the defense. But I think the
Yes.
points you made about
I would
Argentina
be too.
and everything were fair. And also it's so rare that a team continues this level of international dominance for so long. Surely something's got to give. So
Yes.
I think Spain 1, Argentina 2 is fair.
Hmm.
And that leads us to the rest of the contenders. Now we already talked about England. I kind of want to put England at 3. How do you feel about that?
I actually would put them a lot lower than that.
Really?
I
I
think
think
it's so easy. Sorry, go on.
I think for me, those two teams, I think, even though we've talked about issues they have, they're so far ahead of the rest. In terms of what we've seen. Um, because I think every other team has a glaring issue, and most of it's to do with managers. I feel Thomas Tuchel, we have no idea, and he's not going to get tested competitively until the World Cup. I mean, they
Yeah.
did lose to Senegal, which,
Still been a poor start though, regardless.
and I think what makes me put them at number 3 is even more so than France. It's probably one of the most balanced starting 11s you could get.
I
Pickford.
think it's the best squad in international football right now.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
England or Spain, isn't it? It's no
yeah.
one else really. And you
Yeah.
look at Mark Gahey at centre back, who I still desperately want to sign for Liverpool because I think he's brilliant.
Oh, good. He's so good.
Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has got a lot of stick, I still think is more than good enough to be a big contributor for this team.
Yeah.
You go into the midfield, you got Declan Rice, you got Jude Bellingham, Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, Harry Kane. That's 5 of the
Hmm.
best players in the world right there. And I think
Yeah.
just having, I think people are underestimating the Harry Kane thing. He's a brilliant World Cup goal scorer. He's won a World Cup Golden Boot. He is
And
going to be the
technically a
key.
Euros Golden Boot.
Yeah, he's going to be the
Yeah.
key where, a game's going to be tight. And so many times he's got a goal. And I think he gets a lot
Yeah.
of stick from England fans that, the style of play isn't good enough when he plays. But I believe in him. That said, I cannot
I do too.
in a million years justify putting them higher than 3. I can't even
No, I
entertain the
agree.
thought that
I
they'd beat
agree.
Spain or Argentina in a knockout game. But this is the thing is with England is I'm saying this out loud and I'm looking down at France and Germany. I'm thinking, would they actually beat France or Germany in a knockout game?
I don't believe they did. I don't believe they would. So there's a few things there. Um, First of all, I agree with the point about Kane. I think it's easy to criticize the style of play without understanding what he actually does. Now, admittedly, he was injured in the Euros and probably shouldn't have been starting because he was clearly not fit at all. But he's come back from that since. I still firmly believe he's the best number 9 in world football. overall. He may not be quite as good of a goal scorer as Erling Haaland, but I would still definitely put him as the better player. And he's one of the most well-rounded players in the world. And often, I think, with a lot of the best national sides, centre forward is the position where they're often lacking because there's so few great centre forwards. If you have a world-class striker, that can go a long way. He's definitely much better than the options of Spain and Argentina. I think I would always expect Spain and Argentina to beat England, but that goes a long way. But despite England's incredible squad depth, time and time again, we've never really seen them play as well as the squad demands for the expectations. I think the best we've ever seen this England squad play is probably when they faced France and lost. Now, it could have gone either way. You never expect Harry Kane to miss that penalty, certainly not in the way he does. Now, to be fair, it was against Hugo Lloris, his team captain, who has faced more penalties in training against Harry Kane than any other goalkeeper. But nonetheless, you don't expect that to happen. So that was a bit of a shock, but still, that could have gone either way, and that's the best we've ever seen them, and they still lost. We've never really seen them beat a top team playing at their best. They did well against the Dutch, but they were lucky with the penalty decision, and they did beat Germany in 2021. But again,
It was a poor Germany
it
side.
was a
And it was at
it
home.
was
It was at
by
home.
German standards and at home.
Yeah.
So we've never ever seen England play as well as you would expect for the best squad in international football. And that's why I would put them, I think the highest I could put them is fifth, to be honest. I wouldn't even put them fourth.
Wow. I think we can
Yeah.
compromise and stick them at fourth because
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
happy to settle there.
putting France at three then would make sense because France and England I was
Yes.
sort of because I just don't think Didier Deschamps. I think he's overstayed his
Yeah.
welcome. I think, and I
He
think
has.
there is a sense of
And
I
he's become
think
too stubborn.
there is a sense that I think he's been hard done by because even in the 2022 World Cup, you know, Kante, Pogba, and Kunku and Benzema, who people forget, and Kunku was one of the best strikers, best prospects in the world at the time. Benzema had just won the Ballon d'Or. Kante and Pogba were still playing pretty good football, not at their best. They were all out injured. Before the tournament, France were basically written off, and then they made the final. People
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah.
Um,
And they were crippled by the fact that they had that stomach bug before the final, and they
yeah.
still took it to penalties. I mean, people were like, "Oh, they were so much worse than Argentina." They were for most of the match until
Mm.
Mbappe took it into his own hands and said, "Fine, I'll do it by myself." But they were ruined by that stomach bug, which is why none of them could run around, and they still held off against a very, very good opponent. So it could have really gone either way. And it came down really in the shootout to Emi Martinez, who was, as we've said, the toughest goalkeeper to take a penalty against.
Yeah, but at the same time, you look at their performances at the Euros, again, they reached the semi-finals. It's hard to be too
Yeah.
critical. They knocked out Belgium and Portugal. So again, those two were some of the worst games of football I've ever seen. Some of the most bland, dull,
Yeah.
horrific
Yeah. hmm
watches, which is criminal considering the quality of player on the pitch.
Yeah.
But
And Mbappe was clearly really suffering with his broken nose as well.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he just was not at his best.
So in terms of the manager, I think he should have gone after the Euros, and it is terrible because basically since Euro 2020, the French fans have been wanting Zidane to come in and basically wishing Deschamps out of the job. So I do have my sympathies with him, but also I just I don't see them winning another World Cup with him in charge. That said, the pros for France are what are 12 months for French players. I mean, PSG obviously won the Champions League.
Yeah.
Ousmane Dembele has somehow in like
Yeah.
the space of like 6 months, it turned 2025 and he was like, okay, I'm going to realize all my potential. And the player everyone thought
And
I
then
was,
some.
I'm going to be that player. Um,
Yeah.
not
Who's
only
I never saw that coming.
no, and he was
No,
the
not at
star
all.
man of a
He
brilliant
was.
PSG team.
Yeah.
And then not to mention Michael Olise being one of the best
Yeah.
playmakers in world football now.
I
Bradley
think he was
Barcola,
maybe the best player in the Bundesliga this season.
it was him or
Well,
Kane,
last
wasn't it?
season now.
Yeah, it was one of those two.
Yeah, toss up
And
between them two.
and then you got Bradley Barcola and Desiree Doué, who are both very exciting wingers. Ugo Ekitike's just got a big move to Liverpool. If that works out, he could be the starting number nine with Mbappe, Olise, and Dembele behind him. Like that
Yeah, I
is.
know, I know, I know.
And then if Ekitike doesn't work out, you got Marcus Thuram still, who's a very capable
Mhm.
forward.
Yeah.
Um,
And regardless, it means Mbappe can play on the left, which he so prefers to do. He doesn't want to be a centre forward. He doesn't want to be that number nine.
I think having Michael Olise just sort of come out of not out of nowhere, but no one expected him to be this good straight away for Bayern Munich, I don't think. And the fact he
Hmm.
has been, as Antoine Griezmann
Yeah,
has retired from international football, is perfect
yeah.
timing. They've got their creator now. I still have
Normally, you would really be missing Griezmann. So that's, I think the fact that we're not worried about that is huge.
I still have my fears in central midfield because I Chouameni and Camavinga are two players where I think, yeah, they're very good, but none of their managers seem to fancy them that much. I mean, Camavinga
Yeah.
especially. Chouameni has played a lot of minutes at centre back for Real Madrid. Hopefully, he can
Hmm.
get a solid season, but their fans don't really seem to rate him. But that's Real Madrid fans; they don't rate
Yeah,
anybody
yeah,
unless they become their record
exactly.
goal scorer. Um, and then you got Adrian Rabiot and even Zaire Emery, who is a very promising talent, doesn't really play for PSG that much because Joao Neves, Vitinha, and Fabian Ruiz are so good. He can't get into the team.
Yeah.
So central midfield is definitely a worry. Teo Hernandez as well at left back has just gone to Al Hilal, which I think is a
Hmm.
puzzling move. I think he's still good enough
Yeah.
to play in
Yeah.
Europe. But then, you got Saliba and Konate and Jules Koundé, who had a brilliant season for Barcelona, and then Mike Maignan, who is a bit inconsistent at times, but you got Lucas Chevalier, who looks like he's going to be PSG's new number one when Donnarumma leaves, waiting in the wings. So brilliantly talented squad. Question marks around Deschamps, question marks around the central midfield, but that's basically the same question marks I have for England. Who's going to play at the six? What is going to be the
Yeah.
deal with the manager? And I've got to say, when you got Kylian Mbappe at a World Cup, it kind of makes me think, oh yeah, but you could. You could. He's
Yeah.
what's going to happen is Messi's probably going to break Miroslav Klose's record at this World Cup for most goals, and then at the next World Cup, Mbappe will break Messi's record because he's already got like
Yeah.
11 World Cup goals or something stupid like that, 12.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And he's
yeah,
what? He's only 26?
yeah, he's only been at two, so yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think he will take that record to a place where it may never get broken now,
well,
given how unbelievably young when he started.
we'll see. He's got two more World Cups in
Yeah.
him at least.
Hmm.
So we're going to take a quick break, and then we will come back to you with the four remaining teams we want to discuss, and they are Germany, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Brazil. So far, we've got Argentina in second, Spain in first.
Hmm.
That was a weird way around of saying it. And then
Yeah.
France in third, and England in fourth in our power rankings. Now, fifth place. Do you feel strongly about any of Germany, Portugal, the Netherlands, or Brazil in fifth?
I don't feel strongly about any of them. I think I would go with Portugal, in fact.
I have
Although
Portugal
what's
sixth,
I
so we can discuss this.
okay,
Yeah.
so close. I think the devastating news about Diogo Jota makes me almost slightly more nervous because I think he could have been so important for that team because the big talking point with Portugal, of course, is that Ronaldo has been too old for years to be starting for them, in my opinion, let alone when he'll be, what, 41 at the time of the World Cup.
I will say
And I mean,
I've
like we discussed earlier, it's hard enough with Messi.
I've got to say he really surprised me in the Nations League final. I think he played really really well and got the goal.
He did, but that's the one time I've
Mm.
seen it in recent years. And I mean, what I thought was such a shame was in the was it the Slovenia match that came to the shootouts in the Euros? Yeah, where he missed the penalty that could have won it in without going to penalties. And yeah, I mean, lots of the best players will miss penalties. It's not the first one he's missed. But what shocked me is a guy of that caliber, that experience, one of the greatest to ever do it, was so distraught and was having to be comforted by all his players. When you think the one advantage of having Ronaldo in your team is that he will raise everyone else's standards and mentality and ensue confidence in them. But in fact, it was the opposite, and that really, I thought, just disappointed me because it just shows that it's not the same Ronaldo we've seen for so long. It was almost like he was doubting himself, and you never expect that. Now,
No.
yes, to be fair, he then goes on and scores the penalty in the shootout. It's a big moment, but nonetheless, it just made me think this is a different Ronaldo now.
The thing with Portugal, it's so funny how the narrative changed because in from what 2010 to 20, well, 2010 they had still had Deco and Carvalho. So 2012,
Hmm
2014, 2016, which they somehow ended up winning. 2018,
Yeah.
the narrative was Portugal is carrying this team of mediocre players mostly.
hmm
And then the narrative swiftly changed by Euro 2020 and then the 2022 World Cup and Euro 2024 that the team around Ronaldo was suddenly really, really good.
Yeah,
And I think that's why a lot of people were
and it
so
is.
disappointed at Euro 2020 with how bad they were, because that's pretty much the only tournament where you had peak Ronaldo and Bruno Fernandes and Bernardo Silva and Ruben Diaz and all
Hmm
these brilliant players
Yeah,
around him who've all sort of come up at the same time. And you've now suddenly
yeah,
got another generation headlined by Vitinha, João Neves, and Nuno Mendes at PSG. And you're
yeah.
suddenly thinking, this is a really, really good
It
team.
is a really exciting squad.
Diogo Costa in goal, who is solid, and I'm surprised hasn't had a big move yet. No disrespect to Porto. You've still got Diogo Dalot, a right back, who's a solid, squad player.
Yeah,
Ruben
yeah,
Diaz and Gonzalo Inacio or Antonio Silva, two young centre backs who are quite exciting alongside the experience of Ruben Diaz.
yeah,
And then obviously, Nuno Mendes, the best left back in the world. You're looking at
yeah.
Vitinha, João Neves, and Bruno Fernandes as a midfield
Just
three.
a ridiculous midfield.
Bernardo Silva on the right, and then on the
Honestly.
left, take your pick out of Rafael Leao and Chico Conceição and
Yeah,
whoever else you want to bring up into that conversation. And then Ronaldo up front, who, despite anything else, he will get 2 or 3 goals at this World Cup at least.
he will. He will.
So for me, a lot of people are doubting Roberto Martinez again with a lot of these teams. It's the manager that comes into question. I think he's done a good job. I think he's an upgrade on Fernando Santos, who ended up winning them a
He is.
tournament. So I have them at sixth, and I have Germany at fifth.
hmm
So, but we sort of mentioned it off
I
camera.
could agree with that. Yeah, I think it's kind of a toss of a coin between the two of them. I put them on a very similar level.
We mentioned it off camera, the Musiala factor. How
Yeah,
explosive is he
that's
when he
big.
comes back from his injury?
I think it will take a while. A player like that plays like he does, he's so kind of he never stops running. He's so energetic and agile. And you think even when he's fit to play, it's going to take a while, I believe, until he gets back to his best. Now, he's young, so he should recover fairly well, but this is his first major injury, or certainly this long out. So, is he going to know how best to go about coming back again? And I think it's just I think it's devastating for Bayern at the start of the season. And then for Germany, much the same. I mean, they do have Florian Wirtz as well, and there's always that issue of how do you try and get them both in when I know that Musiala can play out on the left, but he's better in the number 10 position.
I really liked
So
how
that
they
is a
set up.
challenge.
I really liked how they set up in the Euros with the 3-10s where they had Gundogan, Wirtz, and
Yeah.
Musiala. But then
It's weird, but it kind of worked.
what ended up
Okay.
happening was Nagelsmann seemed to prefer having Leroy Sané over Wirtz to have that width,
Mm.
because they became a little bit predictable. But when it worked, it looked brilliant. So
Yeah.
it's a tricky one. I think
hmm
for me, if you got Wirtz, Musiala, and Joshua Kimmich in your team, the creativity is going to be through the roof. Whoever you're starting up front,
Yeah.
whether it's Fulkrug or Nick Voltemad or I forget the Mönchengladbach striker that they've been playing recently as well.
Mhm.
Um, but whoever's playing up front, even Kai Havertz, they're going to get loads of chances.
Mm.
And you still got Antonio Rudiger at the back. I know Ter
Yeah.
Stegen's sort of being ostracized at Barcelona by both the fans and the owners, which is a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
I still think he's good enough to be the national team goalkeeper. I still think that
I agree.
he did
I
a really
agree.
good job. The big thing, yeah, the two big things for me. I mean, I love Julian Nagelsmann as well. What a great coach. But
Hmm.
the two big things for me are the Musiala injury, and people forget they had Manuel Neuer, Ilkay Gundogan, and Toni Kroos at the last Euros, and they've all retired from
Yeah.
international football since then.
Mhm. And it was the right decision. I don't think anyone's going to be thinking, well, we'd be better off with them still in the team. However, they don't have necessarily the direct replacements for them. I think that's the issue here.
S- and it's sad because I probably would have had Germany as high as number three if just for the Musiala, Wirtz, Kimmich
Yeah,
factor, but the Musiala injury has me worried.
it
Um,
does.
even if I do think the rest of the team is very good. So
I
Germany
mean, you said
five,
the prediction is what, 4 months, is it? They expect him
4 or
to be
5
back?
months, but it's
But
hard to know.
that seems very quick with how bad it looks. And even if it is, I really don't expect to be the type of injury where once he's back to his old self. I think it will maybe by the time that the World Cup comes around, maybe he'll be back to his old self, but you just don't know. And of course, Germany have to figure out in the meantime with the matches before the tournament how to play without him, and then suddenly bringing him back in, well, that could disrupt everything.
I mean, the one bright spot for Germany is look at Florian Wirtz. He tore his ACL when
Yes,
he was 20 or 21, and he came
he
back
was 20.
an even better player than
Yeah,
before he tore his
it
ACL.
does happen.
So,
It's unexpected, but it's not impossible.
so yeah, so we're going with Germany at fifth, Portugal in sixth. I don't
I think I'm
even
happy
just
with
talking
that.
about Germany
Yeah.
now. I'm not sure, but I think they're both teams, like most teams on the international level, which is what makes these tournaments so exciting, is that you don't really have those dominant. I mean, Argentina have been dominant, but
Mm,
you can see a way to beat them, you know.
definitely. And you can see flaws in the system.
So I've got the Netherlands in seventh and Brazil in eighth. Um,
I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, it sounds shocking, I know, but Brazil, I don't think I would ever fear coming up against Brazil right now. Whereas with the Dutch, I would be a little concerned. They still have an excellent squad. I think there is a psychological aspect, in my opinion, of teams who have never won a World Cup before. It's that feeling of, oh, well, it would be absolutely shocking if we were to win this World Cup. Because there's only so many teams that have, and you kind of expect the same ones to win it every single time. People don't even expect England to win it again, and they've already got one, let alone a team who's been in many finals. I think they've probably lost more finals than anyone else, I would imagine. They've been in so many, and
I think
yet
they've lost
they're
three
still good.
finals: 78,
Yeah.
was it 74, 2010, obviously. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And they've just got the one Euros ever, which when they have some of the greatest players in history, is pretty surprising. And now, to be fair, it's not the largest population size, so to have some of the incredible legends they have is pretty remarkable. But nonetheless, they don't have the track record of winning, and I think psychologically that is a big factor in these tournaments because they come around so infrequently. The World Cup in particular is such a massive deal for players to win that when the nation hasn't done it before, you don't go in expecting to win it.
they've had a very turbulent 10 years, and I think they're now probably in the best place that they've been in those 10 years. They missed Euro 2016, they missed the 2018 World Cup. Ronald Koeman brought them to Euro 2020, then left to be the Barcelona manager, which we all know how that
Yeah.
went. And
Uh,
then they got Frank de Boer as the manager for some reason. They thought that was a good idea. Um, and then it really took Louis van Gaal to come in and sort of restore Dutch fans' will to
yeah.
live and
Yeah.
give them really what quietly was a very good tournament in 2022. They really breezed through the group stages. They breezed past a pretty good USA team who had done quite well against England, and
There was a lot of hype on the US team at that point.
the Dutch beat them pretty handily, and
Hmm.
they took Argentina to penalties in what was probably
Yeah.
Argentina's hardest knockout game before the
And
final.
I think that. the Argentinians were lucky in a lot of ways in that match. I think the Dutch were really hard done by. The behavior from Argentina was just despicable in that match. They now I don't prescribe into any of those kind of theories about FIFA orchestrated the whole thing so that Messi would win the goal. I've heard all this. I've heard all the shouts. I don't believe that, but I think what you can't deny is that the ref was very lenient in that match, and I think the Dutch should feel hard done by with that result. I think they were unfortunate in a lot of ways, and it really could have gone either way against the eventual victors.
It was a classic head loss from the ref because he was given way too many yellow cards, but then wasn't sending people off for fouls
Yeah,
that
because he
should have
felt
been
like
reds.
he started too soon. Yeah, yeah, he felt like he'd gone too soon, and then suddenly he needed to compensate by swinging too far on the other side.
Mm. But you look at the Dutch team, you got the depth of this. I've made a chart. This is the only team I made a depth chart for because I
Oh,
thought it
really?
was astonishing.
hmm
And I'm going to not mention goalkeeper and striker because I'm going to get to that. But right back, you got Frimpong, Dumfries, and Timber. Centre
Yeah.
backs, you got Virgil van Dijk, Stefan de Vrij, Matthijs de Ligt, and Jan Paul van Hek, while also noting that Timber can play centre back and all three of their left backs can play centre back. Left backs, you got Mickey van der Ven, you got Jarell Hatto, and you got Nathan Ake, who can also all play at centre back, like I said.
Well, that's because the Dutch are so tall. They're always going to be looking at playing at the centre back.
But you're looking at that system where you can have Frimpong or Dumfries basically playing as a winger, and then Mickey van der Ven or Nathan Ake tucking into a back three. That
Yeah.
just sounds fantastic. And
which
then
which Diaz and Ake are very used to doing at City as well, so they're very comfortable doing that.
and then you got your midfield three, which I think is quietly a really brilliant. There's a lot of great midfield threes, but you got Frankie De Jong, Ryan Gravenberch, and Tijani Reinders, who's just signed for Manchester City. That is a brilliant midfield three. And then off the bench, you're looking at Matt Zvifa, who I think will have a big season for Brighton. Quinton Timber, Jurian's brother. Cope
Mhm.
Miners from Juventus. Kenneth Taylor at Ajax. A lot of great options. On the wings, you're looking at Cody Gakpo, Xavi Simmons, Daniel Marlin, who's had a great preseason at Aston Villa.
Yeah,
Justin Cliver, Noah Lang, who's just signed for Napoli. It's just such a deep, stacked squad. There's going to be players not in the squad that are going to be feeling really hard done by because there's just
yeah,
not enough spaces for them all. And the reason I leave goalkeeper and striker is because they're two of the most important positions. And they're the two positions that I don't feel very confident in.
yes, it's
Because
definitely their biggest flaws.
at the moment, Bart Verbruggen is starting, who I think is a promising young goalkeeper, but he doesn't instill me with massive confidence.
No.
I think
Especially with lacking in tournament experience. When I think for a goalkeeper, that's one of the most important positions to have experience because the pressure on a goalkeeper, if they make a mistake in a tournament, I mean,
Mm.
remember what happened with was it Rob Green in the
Rob
World
Green,
Cup?
yeah.
Completely destroyed. It was one mistake, completely destroyed his career forever, and that is the kind of pressure that debutant goalkeepers are under in
Mm.
these tournaments. So I think that is where you'd always be nervous about a keeper coming in having not really done it before.
I, I I like Verbruggen. He obviously played pretty well at the Euros, so he does have that major tournament experience. But
Mm.
compared
But not the
to
World Cup.
Emi Martinez and Mike
Yeah.
Maignan and even Diogo Costa has played. Obviously, he made the big mistake against Morocco, which is what everyone remembers. But
Yeah.
still, these are more established goalkeepers. I would personally start Mark Flecken, especially now that he's got his move to Bayer Leverkusen from Brentford. I think he's the better goalkeeper. I think he was in the Premier League. Now he's going to be getting Champions League experience. But it looks like Verbruggen is going to be the first choice. And then
And he's not playing the World Cup yet.
your striking options are Memphis Depay and Wout Weghorst.
Yeah. Yes. Not a great choice, is it?
I mean, I like Weghorst as a super sub, but
Yeah, because he's got his one aspect which sets him apart. But you kind of you stick the big lad up front, hope you get a cross that he can head in. But it's it's a very one-dimensional style of play. And I think it only really works right at the end of a game when either the score's level or you're behind and you just desperately need a single goal. And yeah, it can be useful at times, but you can't. It's not the basis of an entire team structure, is it?
I would almost be tempted to play Xavi Simmons or Justin Kluivert as a false nine, and
False
then
nine.
have Gakpo
Mm,
and Marlon on the wings or something like that.
potentially. Yeah. I mean,
But
I could even imagine Marlon doing all right down the middle too.
I think
But it's not a great position to be in, is it?
no, and it's sad because again Ronald Koeman, similar to Roberto Martinez, is another manager I think gets a lot of stick, but actually he's done quite a good job. I mean, getting to the semi-finals of the Euros after finishing third in their group, I think that's impressive.
Yeah.
They beat a very impressive Turkey team and they pushed England all the way. That was a, I don't want to say it
Hmm.
was a 50-50, England were the better team, but it was a maybe a 60-40 game where they easily could have
Yeah.
won it. And then they're in the Euro final. So,
Yeah, it came down to a brilliant last minute goal. I mean, I only watched the replay again a couple of weeks back. I've forgotten Ollie Watkins's winning goal. The angle that he gets it at is incredible. I don't think Netherlands are too much at fault there because it's just you're not expecting him to get it from that
no.
angle. And as I touched on before, I think England were very lucky with that penalty. Now, yes, it was a good penalty from Kane, credit for that, but I personally am not sure it should have been given in the first place. And then without that, I don't know that England go on to even equalize in that moment because the goals change games so much, right? I
Hmm.
don't know that I think it could have been you don't know, but it could have gone in any way from that.
So yeah, I think for me, Argentina or Spain are the two teams that I expect to be winning one of those
Yes,
teams. England and France are
definitely.
two teams I could see in the final pretty easily. Germany,
Hmm.
Portugal, and the Netherlands easily see them in the semis, but I don't see them making that last step to the final at the moment.
Hmm.
In eighth place, I can't justify putting them any lower just because the talent is Brazil.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think even the fact that they're this low is pretty shocking by Brazilian
They're
standards.
the second favourites according to the bookies,
Yeah, I don't
which
agree with that. Yeah, I think eight. I completely agree. I think it's fair when you look at the squad and the recent form. It is pretty pretty shocking, really, that it's in this position. I remember growing up, no matter what current form said, I would always fear facing Brazil more than any others. They were the most terrifying team to face.
well, it feels like a long way away from that 2002 team with Rivaldo,
It does.
Ronaldinho, and Ronaldo. But
Oh
what
no.
people forget is going into that tournament, Brazil were really unfancied. They'd been really bad in qualifying. The team chemistry was said to be not very good. They didn't know what
Yeah.
formation they were going to play. And the decision to play a three at the back and having Cafu and Roberto Carlos basically as wingers, wing
Yeah.
backs, but wingers,
Yeah.
was made basically in one of the friendlies before the tournament. So that is
Oh
one
really?
thing
I
I
didn't
will
know that.
say.
Wow.
That's one thing I will say is that Carlo Ancelotti is not going to have much time. But sometimes at international football, you don't need much time. As we spoke about Argentina, they adapted quickly. They brought in McAllister and Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez, who came in for Lautaro Martinez, who was not playing that well. And
Yeah.
suddenly their World Cup was completely transformed. So I think with these players, you've got to rank them fairly high because you never know, especially with Carlo, who I'm not saying he's a great tactician. He's not a bad tactician, but he's not a
But
Pep
it's not his
Guardiola.
foremost strength.
He's
No. Yeah.
what he is though. He's good at finding roles for players that you might not have expected. He's good at adapting to the players that he has, and like Tchouaméni at centre back is an example. He's
Yeah.
did a really good job there. So I'll be really interested to see what the starting 11 he goes for is. There are so
And what I
many
think is good
question
about
marks, though.
Ancelotti, yeah, there are. But what I think is good about Ancelotti as well for this position is that he's not one of those managers who has his philosophy and his style of play, and then he spends 2 seasons getting all the players
Mm.
to fit that system. I think he is good at at figuring out what players can and can't do and making the best of them. And he's also good at letting certain players, giving them some freedom and letting them do their thing when the time comes for it. And I think that's much better suited for international management because you have so little time. So I don't know that it'll work, but I am cautiously excited.
Oh, I'm really excited to watch them in the sense
Yeah.
that I don't know what we're going to get. It could be, and this is a World Cup where most of the third place teams are going to go through, and I don't even exaggerate.
Yeah, that's
They
a
could
whole other
honestly go out in
thing.
the groups.
Yeah,
Like
they
if
could.
their form continues how it has been, but Carlo's first couple games, they looked a bit better. It was a nil-nil
Mhm.
away at Paraguay, I think, and then a 1-0 win over Colombia. It might have been the other way around. Um, so two
Yeah.
decent teams, and they got 4 points from it. But the Brazilian fans are going to want some flair. They're going to want some goals. And I
Yeah,
think what he's going to do is, I think Bruno Guimaraes is a nailed-on starter because he's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League.
definitely.
Next to him, I would just stick Joe Linton there and just do the Newcastle thing. Have
Yeah.
your workman like midfield, and then you can
hmm
afford to have four attackers, which is where their real strengths are. There's so many question marks though. Can Vinicius Jr. rediscover the form that he was in 12 months ago? It feels a long way away now.
It does,
Um,
but I think he can because it wasn't exactly a one-off fluke, was it? It's been
mm.
a long time coming. Yes, that season was particularly brilliant, even by his standards, but he had several very, very good years before that.
But he was
So
so
yes,
poor last season. He was really poor.
he was, but I think that's the anomaly, right?
But there's
So I
also
would have confidence in him returning.
there's the sort of cloud hanging over him where he's never really been that good for the national team. I think he has like
No,
four
he's
or
not.
five
He's
national
not.
team goals in like 50 caps. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think that's a really fair point. I think that's true of a lot of these Brazilian players now. Just because Brazil hasn't done anything at international level for a while, really, by their standards.
and then you've got Rodrigo. Is he going to leave Real Madrid? Will he be able to be the main man somewhere else? Does that mean that him and Vinicius are competing for the left wing spot? You're probably
Yeah,
going to have Rafinha in the team, who has just had a brilliant season. Can he
he has.
carry on that
Well,
form,
there
or
are
is
a
that an
lot of Ballon d'Or
anomaly?
shouts for him as well.
Is Neymar going to play? Because Carlo Ancelotti has said if Neymar is fit, he's going to be the captain and he's going to play. And
I struggle to see how you can possibly get Neymar playing, really.
it
Between playing in Saudi Arabia and so injured for so long, I just don't see how it could happen. It would
well,
be
he's
such a colossal risk.
he's back at Santos now, isn't he? So he's
Oh, of
going
course
to
he is. I
be in
completely forgot
the
about that. Yeah,
going to be in the Brazilian
yeah,
league, but he's
of
barely
course he
played for
is.
them because he's in and out the team with injuries
Exactly.
all the time.
This is why I forgot because he's perpetually injured. I just never. I can't remember the last time I actually saw the guy play. It's been so. I think it's been years since I've
Mm.
actually watched him playing live. That's how long it's been.
Which is sad. It might be the last World Cup for me.
It is really
Which
sad.
which if we remember, again,
Possibly,
speaking
yes.
of coming close, that goal against Croatia is one of the best goals I've ever seen him score. And I
Yeah.
thought that was going to be that's the highlight moment that's going to be remembered where Brazil dug in and then went on to win the World Cup because that's how it felt. It felt like they had the momentum.
Yeah.
And then Croatia just had that counter attack and then won on penalties out of nowhere. Again, fine
Croatia are
margins
good
because
at that, though. They're good at coming back in extra
you,
time and then
you,
winning on pens.
you can never count them out. And then
No.
what one thing that is promising is the striking position, which has been pretty poor for them. They've had Richarlison and Gabriel Jesus, but João Pedro
Yeah.
and Mateus Cunha have both had big money moves um, in the Premier League, so it's probably going to be one of those two, and either one
I think so.
pretty
I think
pretty
it
good.
definitely, sadly, can't be Richarlison, unfortunately.
No.
It just can't be. And Gabriel Jesus is a great player, but there's two big aspects there. One is that I'm not sure he was ever really a number nine. I think he was as much of a kind of
Mm.
a wide striker, right? Like a kind of a goal scoring winger. And he's just never fit anymore. So it just can't be either of those two. And then when you think about some of the great goal scorers Brazil have had, it's I'd say it's a fairly mediocre selection at striker.
Yeah, and yeah, neither João Pedro or Mateus Cunha are natural strikers either.
Ex-
Um,
No, but it's the best they've got.
yeah, and they are two really good players, and there's a good chance one of
They
them
are.
has a really good season, and then that's good enough, and they
hmm
can lead the line.
Yeah. At
Um,
least they have options. It's not like it's all on one guy hoping he plays all right this season. So they do have the options there, but it's not a great position for
even
them to be in by any means.
Igor Jesus has got a couple goals for them in recent national team games, and he's just signed for Nottingham Forest from Botafogo, so they could
Mm.
have a Nottingham Forest striker as their as their
Yeah,
main man.
be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Um,
I mean, credit to the amazing stuff Forest have been doing
mm.
recently, but you know,
So that's our number eight. So just to recap our list so far, we got Spain at one, Argentina two, France at three, England at four, Germany at five, Portugal at sixth, Netherlands seventh, Brazil eighth, and now we need the final two spots in our top 10, which I've got six teams down, and two of them I've only written down because of the
Uh-huh.
names. I don't want to pick them. You might disagree.
Okay.
Italy,
Yeah.
I
I knew
don't
you
even
were gonna
think
say that. Yeah.
Italy are not going to qualify. I don't think. I just think
They
there's a
don't
hex on
qualify
them.
for World Cups anymore.
Um,
It's impossible for them. They can win the Euros, but they can't get to the World Cup.
so you're happy to discount Italy?
I think so. Maybe
Yeah.
that's just my English bitterness after four
I'm
years ago. I
Welsh.
don't know what it is.
I'm Welsh and I love
Yeah.
Italy. It's one of my favourite classic football teams when they had Del Piero and Totti and Pirlo, but it's not the same anymore.
Yeah. It's a very different team now.
They've got some good players, but there's just that mentality block. But and then the other team I got down is Belgium. I don't
Mm.
think Belgium are a top 10 team in the world anymore.
I think it's the name again. I think we
Mm.
all focus on when they were almost inexplicably rated, FIFA's first ranked team for God knows how many years. No one
Mm.
could ever really understand how or why, having never got to a final, but they were, and yes, they had some excellent players, some of the best Belgian players there's ever been, but most of them are long gone now.
Yeah,
So
I
I,
mean,
I think that would be just on the name alone, and I don't think it warrants it.
2018 aside, where they were brilliant and they were really unlucky to lose to France, I
Yeah,
think, yeah, poor team. And I think now
yeah.
they've got Rudy Garcia, who is just a rubbish manager. I don't know how he keeps getting work. His track record is terrible. And Kevin De Bruyne is getting older. He was not the same
He
player at
is.
City.
No, he
And they're
hasn't been for a
relying a
while now,
lot
unfortunately.
on Romelu Lukaku and
Yeah, which
Jeremy
again,
Doku, which,
yeah, Lukaku was massively dropped off, I think, unfortunately. Last time he was brilliant was back when he was at Inter before the Chelsea move, and that was what almost 4 years ago now that he got that move. So it's been a long time. And now to be fair, it's easy to discredit his incredible international goal scoring record. He's got what is it, something like 80 goals for Belgium,
mm,
by far
mm,
one of the highest scoring players ever at international level. People talk about Kane's record all the time for England, and that's still like 20 goals less than Lukaku's. And I think but what we've seen in recent years is unfortunately he will miss sitters, and that just stays in your mind for a long time. He did it with Inter in the final, and the Champions League final against City, and then he did it again in the World Cup for Belgium.
in their most important game, he came on and he
Yeah, when
just
they
missed three sitters. Yeah.
desperately needed that one goal, and I think that weighs heavily.
So that leaves me with the four teams I've got left that I want to put into
Hmm.
these last two spots. We'll quickly run through this.
Yeah.
I've got Croatia,
Hmm.
Japan, Ecuador,
Oh.
and Mexico. Now,
Ah.
Mexico
Okay. It's interesting.
are one of the co-hosts. They have a
Hmm.
very feverish fan support, and they will easily have the best home field advantage. They've just won the Gold Cup
By far.
against the United States B team, but still the United States. And they are really the only of the three co-hosts that I could see making a push for the quarterfinals. I think the USA are in shambles, and Canada
Yeah.
will be plucky, but I don't think they're good enough. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Ecuador have been brilliant in World Cup qualifying. They've got a hell of a centre back pairing with Pacho and Hincapié of PSG and
Yeah.
Bayer Leverkusen. They got Moises Caicedo in the midfield.
Yeah. Who
They
is looking like he's going to become the player we all expected him to be. I know he had that kind of rough start at
mm,
Chelsea, but that seems like a while ago now to me.
and I think they barely concede any goals. And they're
Yeah.
just one of those teams you just don't want to play against because they're going to be
Yeah.
physical, they're going to be nasty,
They
but
will
they're
be super dirty,
yeah,
but in such I almost don't mind it from them because you just expect it, don't you?
yeah.
So you know what you're getting into. It's a bit like facing Colombia. You know what you're going to get into before, so you almost can't be mad.
Mm. I mean, I would have had
It's not
Colombia
it's not based on how. Yeah, yeah.
on the
Sorry, go
shortlist,
on.
but based on Luis Diaz and John Duran, and again, like you mentioned, that
Hmm.
physicality. But their
Yeah,
form has been so bad recently that I can't justify it.
I think Ecuador is the more fair choice. I mean, well, the first thing to say is of all these players, none of them are ever going to win it.
No, no.
So it's yeah. No matter what, you just don't see a way. No matter what happens, that they ever win it. So yeah, it's really about, as you say, who makes the quarterfinal. And I think of those, even if they're the smallest teams, I would probably put Mexico and Ecuador as the two
Mm.
most likely to get to a quarterfinal. I
I think
don't
with
really.
with Croatia, I think we all doubted them in 2022. We thought they were finished then, and they reached
Mhm.
the semi-finals. So then we gave them the credit in the Euros, and then they went out in the group stage.
True, that is a very good point.
So and
Hmm.
now everyone's doubting them again.
So we have to not expect them to do anything, and then they will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You know how this goes.
I think
Yeah, yeah.
they've just beat the Czech Republic like 5-1 in a qualifier. Again,
Mhm.
the qualifiers don't mean everything, but I don't want to discount them. I kind of agree with you though. I think I would put Ecuador at 9. I think Ecuador are the best of the rest. I think they're a really sturdy team.
Yeah. And
And
they'll
then
get a lot of support there as well. They'll get a big showing because of it being in North America, which is
yes,
obviously a lot closer than for European fans to get
I
to.
can just picture like France or England playing Ecuador and just getting so frustrated and
Yeah.
even maybe
I
losing
think
1-0 or something, you
Yes,
know.
yeah, I think they are the kind of team who you wouldn't ever expect them to get past the quarters, but in the round of 16, I could imagine them beating a big a
Mm,
big team, just kind of in a really scrappy, horrible way, but they just about do it, whether they just kind of they just they just cynically just fight their way to a penalty shootout, and then they're not the kind of team you would want to face in a shootout because there's
no.
all the dark arts.
Mm,
That's it. Not who you want to be up against. And I could see them doing beating like say I don't know Netherlands or
mm,
Portugal or
mm,
maybe even one of our
mm,
the
mm.
kind of top four favorites. Just in the only way they can do it.
So yeah, Japan I think are a really fun team and everyone's going to love watching
Yeah,
them and they're
we're
probably
all
going
going to
to
want them to do well, but I don't know that they will.
I think they'll at least get last 16 whether they do
I
that
think
next
so.
step to the quarterfinals
That's a fair
even
point.
with
I
players as
could.
good as Kaoru Matoma and Ritsu Doan and Wataru Endo,
Mm-hmm.
the captain, who I think is
Yeah.
and I think he's brilliant. I think if he was playing for
Mhm.
a non-top four Premier League club, he'd be one of the best players. I think he's
Yeah.
just a really reliable, really
Yeah.
good defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think Mexico probably then a 10th, just for the home field advantage. You've
Hmm.
mentioned having a reliable number 9 being important. You got Raul Jimenez
It
and
is.
Santiago
Yeah.
Jimenez as a backup.
Hmm.
They got Gilberto Mora, who is a 16-year-old who has already taken the number 7 for the national team and played
Hmm.
brilliantly in the Gold Cup. Edson Alvarez at West Ham is a really solid defensive midfielder. They're just a solid team. They're not
Yeah.
going to be pretty to watch, but they're going to be, yeah, robust. So I think
I
similar
agree.
to Ecuador, where they could pull off a shock, but past the quarterfinals, I can't see it.
I would put Mexico there in 10th. I mean, I understand why you're talking about Japan. I think it's an easy team to overlook. In fact, about 18 months ago, when I interviewed Tomiyasu when he was playing really, really well, I asked him what do you credit this kind of new surgence of great young Japanese talents to? Um, and he was just, I can't remember his exact answer verbatim, but he was essentially saying that there is this real push now that the nation is starting to really love football again. And it's a big population. These kids are growing up actually really, really caring.
Mm.
Well, they don't have a huge league anymore. I know there was a bit of a push to get the Japanese league to have some of the kind of retired teams,
Podolski went there,
turn it
didn't he?
into like an, yeah, and Iniesta went there,
Mm,
but they never quite managed to turn it into like an MLS
no.
or a Saudi Pro League.
Or even
But
the
there was a
Chinese
push for
league
that,
when that was
or even the Chinese League before it. But nonetheless, the nation really, really cares. I think there will be plenty of Japanese fans who will go and show some huge support there. And you just never know. But I would still put them 11th. I think they're a really fun team. I think they'll be often like the neutrals' favorites, but I would still just have them outside the top
yeah.
10. But it's still pretty great that they're close.
We all forget they beat Spain and Germany at the last World Cup and took Croatia to penalties, which I think was a game they probably should have won. But
Mm,
there we go. There's our top 10 power rankings. Spain then Argentina, then France, England are our four main favourites, we'd say. Then you got
Mm,
Germany,
yeah.
Portugal, the Netherlands, Brazil, Ecuador, and Mexico. I'd love to hear any lists in the comments. Thanks, Ben, again for joining me. I'm
Thank you
sure
for having
Ben
me,
will be
Tom.
back to discuss something else, football related, international football
I'm
related,
sure.
and hopefully we will catch you soon.